Well, hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in today to our presentation. My name is Chaz Price. I'm a certified financial planner with America's Retirement Headquarters, and we are really, really glad that you are here today. Hopefully, you're staying cool, and hopefully, you enjoyed the nice holiday. The July 4th weekend was just this past weekend. And in that same thought process, apropos that, we wanted to do this presentation to highlight some of the retirement benefits available to our federal employees and our military service members, because as we celebrate the nation's independence, we have to recognize the support and the sacrifice that our civilian federal employees and military professionals provide us in safeguarding these freedoms that we enjoy and this independence in the United States that makes this country the best country in the world. So thank you for your service and for all your hard work. And today this presentation is about you. We want to make sure that you understand the federal employee retirement system to the best of your ability. Not that you're going to be an expert, by no means, at the end of this presentation, but that you understand it a little bit better so that when the time comes you can make better informed decisions. Okay? So if there's anything that you take away from this presentation today, it's one thing, and it's the fact that through all the different iterations of the retirement program, the transfer from the CRS system to the FERS, the addition of the TSP plan, is that just recognize that those decisions have been made to essentially cut costs for the government and put more of the emphasis and the focus for a comfortable retirement on your shoulders and removing them from the government shoulders. Okay, so it's all that much more important that you work with someone or that you understand the ins and outs of the FERS system, because it is going to be the TSP plan and the defined contribution program is going to be a big component of your prospects for retirement. We're going to talk about the TSP today. We're going to talk about the basic pension plan, and then we're going to talk about and finish with a part of the presentation designed to show you how to coordinate all three of these benefits, the pension, Social Security, and TSP, into one comprehensive financial plan that maximizes every single dollar that you've earned, because let's be honest, you work way too hard to mess it up. Okay, we want to make sure that you enjoy the retirement of your dreams, and it's not a goal, it's a plan, right? You have to have a plan in place to make that happen, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I've got a lot, so let's just jump right into it. So just a quick disclosure here, while I am a certified financial planner, I'm not yet your certified financial planner. What do I mean by that? Well, we're not giving any specific advice today. This presentation isn't designed to give legal or any retirement advice. It's more for educational purposes and, quite honestly, for entertainment. We hope you enjoy yourself today, but we want you to walk away again with a basic high-level overview of some of the major functions and components of the FERS retirement system, so that again, once the time comes, you're in a position to make a more informed decision. Okay? For more specific advice, you want to reach out to your financial advisors. And again, if you don't have one, we would love to be your financial advisor. We stand ready with the tools, the talent, the technology, and the capabilities to make your retirement dreams a reality today, bringing you Wall Street strategies and to Main Street investors. And we're going to be here for your whole retirement. So with that, let's jump into the meat and potatoes of the presentation. Okay, so to begin, the federal employee retirement system is comprised of four basic components. First and foremost, you qualify for Social Security. You also will receive a basic benefit or pension plan. You also have the ability to save into a thrift savings plan, which is a defined contribution plan, or just a plan that you have the ability to defer some of your salary into, kind of like a 401k. And then you also will receive, in many cases, in some cases I should say, depending on how old you are when you retire, a special retirement supplement, which is paid to you before you are eligible for Social Security, and it's designed to approximate the amount of Social Security that you would receive had you been eligible. Okay, I just wanted to cover some of the basics of the Social Security program in the United States. I know it may be a little rudimentary for most, but it's important because it does represent a pretty significant retirement income source for most Americans, especially our federal employees. So, Social Security, as you know, is a social insurance program that benefits millions of Americans. And it's paid for, what you may not know is Social Security is paid for through your FICA taxes, your Federal Insurance Contribution Act taxes. And those taxes are split between workers and employees. Okay. Now, these FICA taxes then over the years have gone into the Social Security Trust Fund, which is then used to pay benefits to recipients. So, as a federal employee, if you're covered under FERS, you meet certain eligibility requirements, you are entitled to receive Social Security benefits. You are also entitled to participate in Social Security's Medicare insurance program, which pays for a portion of your health costs and health insurance for those Americans that are age 65 and older. Okay, so you can see that Social Security is a very valuable resource to a lot of Americans. Now, you can collect Social Security as early as age 62. You can delay taking Social Security as late as age 70. If you take Social Security early at age 62, you will receive a reduced benefit for the rest of your life. It could be as much as 32% reduction that you would receive. You could also conversely wait until age 70. And just like if you take Social Security early, you receive a reduced benefit. What do you think happens if you wait to take Social Security at age 70? You get an increased benefit. So a lot of times, some clients that are focused on longevity and more importantly, optimizing their Social Security benefits. We're going to show you how to do that in this presentation. But if you would like to optimize your Social Security benefits, you have to look at Social Security not just as a standalone income source, but in conjunction with your other retirement income sources as well. And we can help you do that. Now, there's a concept known as your full retirement age as it applies to Social Security. And the full retirement age is the age at which you could take Social Security and not receive any reduction in the benefit. So if you're born between 1943 and 1954, your full retirement age is 66. Okay? If you're born after 1955 to 1959, your full retirement age is 66 and 2 to 10 months for every year that you were born after 1954. And then anybody born after 1960, their full retirement age is 67. Okay? Now, Social Security taxation. This is a big topic, particularly for folks that maybe have other sources of income in retirement, like a federal employee who's going to have a pension and maybe even taking withdrawals from their TSP. Why do I say that? Well, because your Social Security benefits at most are only going to be taxed up to 85%, meaning at the most only 85% of your Social Security benefits will be included as taxable income. So as you're making Social Security decisions in the context of your FERS retirement, it's important to know that your basic pension is going to be fully taxable, but your Social Security benefits are tax advantaged in a sense that you're not going to pay tax on all of the benefits you receive. So may make sense for some that are tax sensitive to maximize the Social Security that they're receiving because those benefits have some tax advantages associated with them. Okay? Okay. A question that I get asked most often regarding Social Security is the viability. Is it going to be around for us when we need it? And so this chart shows that since the early 1980s, the total Social Security revenues, or those FICA taxes, have exceeded benefits that were being paid out. And this has led to a significant surplus being built up over the last 40 years to the tune of about $2.9 trillion in that Social Security Trust Fund. However, in 2021, the Social Security system began running at a deficit to the tune of about $57 billion per year. That meant that the Social Security system had to raid the trust fund to make sure that all of its benefit payments were made as promised on time. And this deficit trend is expected to persist and, in fact, to accelerate into the future, so that more and more reserves are going to be depleted from that trust fund as baby boomers continue to retire at an alarming rate. I think there's about 10 to 12,000 people turning 65 in the United States every day. So, to continue to pay benefits as promised, Social Security will have to continue to withdraw from the Social Security Trust Fund, and estimates show that the Social Security Trust Fund will be completely depleted by the year 2035. Okay. Now, sensationalist headlines often mischaracterize this as the end of Social Security, but that doesn't mean that Social Security is going to be bankrupt, because even with the surplus trust fund depleted, Social Security still should be able to collect payroll taxes from workers and employers, and should be able to pay approximately 80% of the benefits that were promised. Okay, so essentially the potential solutions, there's a lot of them that could fix this problem. One easy fix is to just increase the payroll tax by about 3.42% and split that increased tax between employees and employers. Another option includes raising the minimum retirement age in the United States to age 65 instead of 62. And yet another would be maybe using a means test, so that high income retirees don't necessarily get or receive reduced Social Security. But even if it becomes a crisis before Congress, the government is able to act, something is likely to be done before 2035. I mean, the fastest growing population in the United States is the people over age 65, who also just happen to be probably the most reliable voters in the United States. And so it's hard for me to imagine that Americans, particularly seniors in general, would idly stand by and watch their Social Security benefits being cut by more than 20%. But I digress. That's not a topic for us to be able to solve today, but hopefully Congress is able to come to some sort of resolution and fix this Social Security problem pretty quickly. Okay, now we're going to transition to the basic benefit pension plan, and we're going to first start with eligibility. So, to be vested or eligible to receive your retirement benefits from the basic benefit pension plan, you must have a minimum of at least 5 years of credible civilian service. Now, military service members generally need at least 20 years or more of active service, and the term credible service generally includes any federal service to which contributions to the FERS program were made. Okay, and finally, to be eligible for survivor and disability benefits, you need to have at least 18 months of credible coverage. So, now here's a chart that shows the number of credible service years needed to be eligible under the current FERS retirement program compared to the legacy Civil Service Retirement System, or SERS. And what's interesting to me when I look at this chart is that over the years, federal employees with more than 10 years have experienced a 45% reduction in their monthly income, in their monthly annuity or pension benefit annuity prospects, while the military service members have taken a 20% haircut. And what I mean by that is, you can see here, over 10 years, the annuity calculation factor, the higher the better, was 2% under the legacy SERS program. Under FERS, for those with 20 years of experience, or 20 years of credible service, can only use a factor of 1.10. That's almost a 50% haircut in terms of the payout that you're getting. And then for military service members, the legacy high 3 program, greater than 20 years, you had a factor of 2.5. Now, for the military service members under the blended retirement system with 20 years of experience, it's a 2% payout. So we'll talk about how that calculation works, but essentially, again, more of the onus is on you. It's your responsibility to prepare for retirement, and the government is making that very clear in some of these changes and iterations of the programs that they've rolled out over the years. So all the more reason that you've taken the responsibility and you've taken the interest in this topic. You're on the right track of addressing some of these concerns that we see with the FERS program compared to legacy. Okay, let's move on to contributions now. So federal civilian employees under FERS are required to contribute a percentage of their salary to receive future benefits from the system, defined benefit annuity. And the amount of this contribution has changed over time due to several changes in laws, in addition to, again, some of the cost-cutting measures that the government has implemented. And as a result, it is, again, a direct example of how more of the responsibility for your retirement is placed on your shoulders. So as you can see here, employees hired before January 1 of 2013 only were required to contribute 0.8% of their salary. However, employees hired between January 1 of 2013 and December 31st of 2013 were required to contribute 3.1% of their salary to the pension. And then employees hired after January 1 of 2014 have to contribute 4.4%. In pension system, generally the program is the same. It's just that the contribution amount has changed. So again, further evidence that it is your responsibility to make sure that you're saving enough for retirement, because the government is aggressively cutting costs. And I wouldn't be surprised if this trend continues into the future. Looking at our budget deficit that we have, and just opportunities that the government has to try to balance the budget and reduce costs. This could be a future trend of seeing more of your hard-earned money going towards your pension than in past years and past iterations of the programs, of the retirement programs for federal employees. Okay, now let's look at the retirement option. So you're ready to retire. How does the basic pension plan work? Well, for the most part, we're going to be looking at today an immediate, or what we would refer to as a postponed retirement option, which is available if you meet certain age and service requirements. You can also qualify for an early retirement option, which is available in certain cases of involuntary or voluntary separation due to a workforce reduction, or slimming down of the workforce. Your position is eliminated in some cases. And then you can also qualify for a deferred option, which is available if you leave federal service before reaching your minimum retirement age and service requirements. So minimum retirement age, let's talk about that. So your minimum retirement age, or your MRA, determines your eligibility to retire under one of the previous mentioned retirement options: the immediate or deferred, the early, immediate or postponed, the early or the deferred. And so you can see here, for instance, if you were born before 1948, your minimum retirement age is 55 years old. That means you must be at least 55 years old before you would even be eligible to retire with a pension as a government employee. That's part one. Now, part two of your eligibility for the pension plan is determined by how many years you worked. Okay, so we're going to talk about that a little bit, but you can see here 1953 through 1954 is 56. For most people, 1970, born after 1970, retirement age, your minimum retirement age is age 57. So keep that in mind as we're working through this basic pension calculation that's coming up. Let's take a look at these retirement options in a little bit more detail. So in order to qualify for an immediate or a postponed retirement pension benefit, you have to be at least age 62 and have 5 years of credible service, be age 60 and have 20 years of credible service, met your minimum retirement age and have 30 years of service, or met your minimum retirement age and have 10 years of service, okay, with a little asterisk there. So what does that asterisk mean? Well, if I retire before age 62 at my minimum retirement age, and don't have at least 30 years of credible service, my pension benefit is going to be reduced by 5% for every year that I retire before age 62. And the math is basically 5/12 of every of 1%. So 12 months basically. If I retire a full year before age 62, that's 5% reduction from my pension. So let's play that example out. Let's say, for instance, I was born in 1978. Okay, and so my full retirement age or my minimum retirement age through FERS would be 57. Okay, now that's 5 years before I reached age 62. So that means if I didn't have at least 30 years of credible service, I would receive a 25% reduction in my benefit, because that's 5% per year. I'm 5 years retired before age 62. That's a pretty significant hit. Okay, so that's where the postponed retirement comes into play, where if you, let's say in my example again, I'm 57 and I'm qualified technically to retire because I've met my minimum retirement age and I've got 10 years of service, but I decide to postpone it, meaning I'm going to postpone taking my pension until age 60, assuming that I have 20 years of service. And then in that scenario, I would not have to suffer the penalty. Okay. Early retirement options are available in some cases where through a reorganization or a workforce elimination, mass layoffs, maybe your job is eliminated, you're involuntarily let go. You may have the option for an early retirement depending on if you met the eligibility requirements, age 50 and 20 years of service, or any age and 25 years of service. And then the deferred option. The deferred options are essentially the same as the immediate and the postponed, but in the deferred scenario, you've basically left your employment as a government employee and went off to do other things, and you come back, or actually you decide to, take your benefit once you reached, the age that you need to be eligible for those benefits. So, let's say I left my service at 57 in the government agency I was working for, and I waited 5 years till I was 62, then I could collect my pension. So that's a deferred option. Okay, so how do we calculate? This is probably the biggest part of the presentation you're waiting for. How do we calculate your benefit? Well, your benefit is based on your highest 3 average pay. So take your highest 3 years in employment and average those 3. And then once you come up with that, and let me clarify that is the high 3 consecutive years. So my understanding is they have to be consecutive high 3 years of pay. Once you come up with the average, then your benefit is calculated by multiplying that figure by 1%. Okay, however, if you retire at age 62 or later with at least 20 years of service, you can use a factor of 1.1% instead of 1. Okay, and to determine your length of service for the remaining part of the computation, add all of your months of credible service and subtract from that any fractional part of a month when you worked less than 30 days. Okay, so that'll give you, kind of your general monthly benefit. So you take your highest 3 consecutive earnings years, okay, multiply that by 1%, and then multiply that figure by the number of years that you have credible service, and that, then divide that by 12 to give you your monthly benefit. We'll look at an example in just a second. Okay, so talk a little bit about this special retirement supplement. This is an interesting and a very attractive part of the FERS retirement program. This is, to be honest, something very original and unique that comes with FERS and only FERS. So FERS in some cases will provide you a supplemental retirement payment if you meet certain requirements until you reach age 62. And this is part of your benefit package is designed to approximate the amount of money that you would receive from Social Security. So before you're actually eligible. So for most people, they have to wait until age 62 to qualify for Social Security. If you are a government employee and you retire before age 62, you may qualify for this special supplemental income that's going to allow you to collect essentially Social Security before you're actually before everybody else is eligible. And to be eligible for the supplemental benefit, if you retire with your minimum retirement age and 30 years of credible service, or you could retire at age 60 with 20 years, or potentially if you are involuntarily let go or early from work, at least you have to be age 50 with 20 years, or any age with 25 years of service, you may qualify for this special retirement supplemental income. So that's really a big deal, being able to generate the special income before you qualify for Social Security. That's an advantage. Okay, let's look at survivor benefits. What's available to your family, God forbid, if something were to happen to you? Well, the basic pension plan also offers survivor benefits to beneficiaries of FERS participants. To be eligible for any of these survivor benefits, the participant must generally have worked for 18 months. And provided that you meet that eligibility requirement, upon your passing, generally your spouse will receive a lump sum benefit, first and foremost, life insurance essentially, plus the higher of either half of your annual pension if you're already retired and receiving a pension, or half of your high 3 average pay. And so, for instance, in 2024, the lump sum is approximately $41,500, and that gets indexed for inflation, which means it grows every year depending on what inflation is. Additionally, if you have children, God forbid you pass away, your children will receive an annuity or a benefit up to age 18 or up to age 22 if they're a full-time student. However, if the child was disabled before age 18, then the child will receive a payment until any age. And the payment that the child or your children receives depending on the number of children that you have. For instance, in 2024, the annuity payment for your children is the lesser of $655 per month per child, or $1,965 divided by the number of children that you have. And then lastly, FERS also provides disability benefits, which can help replace a portion of your income if you're unable to work for an extended period of time. And the benefit in the first year is generally equal to 60% of your high 3 average pay, minus any Social Security benefits that you may expect to be receiving. Then, after the first year of disability and until you turn age 62, your disability benefit would be equal to 40% of your high 3 average pay. Cost of living adjustment. So it kind of reminds me of the infomercials where they say, but wait, there's still more. FERS beneficiaries will also receive COLAs, or cost of living adjustments, starting at age 62. However, disability retirees receiving 60% of their average pay do not receive a COLA during the first year. Now, the amount of the cost of living adjustment, or COLA percentage, is based on an index that the world tracks to kind of assess how bad inflation is. It's called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, and there's a lot of different variations of it. Core CPI is the one that the Federal Reserve tracks, but for the most part, Consumer Pricing Index is a very widely tracked, very easy to follow index to measure inflation. And so, for instance, if there is up to a 2% increase in the CPI in any given year, your annual cost of living adjustment will be equal to that CPI increase. So you'd get a 2% increase in your pension. If the CPI increases between 2 and 3, the cost of living adjustment is 2%. And if the CPI increases by more than 3% in any one year, the COLA will be the CPI minus 1%. So again, that's a huge advantage. Not only do you have access to a pension as a government employee, but it does have a cost of living adjustment, which is huge. When we run these financial planning projections to determine the viability of your assets over the rest of your life. A cost of living adjustment is having that ability in your pension to gross up if things get more expensive is a significant advantage, and it basically buries the probability of success for your financial plan in the green at between 90 and 100% when you have that cost of living adjustment, because keeping up, inflation and taxes are going to probably be your biggest threats in retirement. Okay, so now we're going to transition to the thrift savings plan. Okay, and the thrift savings plan is very similar to the traditional 401k. It is a tax-deferred retirement savings and investment plan that offers you the same type of savings and tax benefits that many private corporations offer their employees in 401ks, 403bs. By participating in the TSP, you have the opportunity to save or defer a portion of your current income into a retirement account for later. And then also you receive matching agency contributions, and these contributions that you make help reduce your current taxes. So again, it's a tremendous advantage to be able to contribute to this program, reducing your taxes, saving for future goals like retirement, but then also you ultimately end up paying less taxes by doing so, because that money that you are putting into the TSP plan doesn't get taxed. So you pay less tax simply because there's less to pay tax on, less income in that particular month or pay period to pay tax on. A financial advisor, this is really where I think we earn our keep, is a financial advisor can help you determine the savings amount that you should be contributing to these programs. Because generally there's a mandatory or an automatic contribution. We're going to talk about how much that is, but there's a mandatory component, but maybe that's not enough. Maybe just by saving the minimum amount that you're required to automatically contribute isn't going to be enough to meet your goals. So a financial advisor can help you determine the savings amount that's going to ensure you're saving enough for a comfortable and secure retirement. That's one of the biggest things that we can do for you. Okay, so here real quickly, just kind of have a timeline for all these changes to the FERS and the TSP program. The TSP was added to the FERS retirement system in January of 1987, and that's when the government replaced the CSRS, the CSRS retirement system, with FERS. Again, putting more of the responsibility on your shoulders in saving for retirement versus receiving a pension and the government, saving for you. Military service members were then eligible to participate in a TSP plan in October of 2001 as part of that National Defense Authorization Act, which also introduced a 3% auto enrollment feature, which was added to the TSP program in 2010. And the blended retirement system then replaced the high 3 retirement plan for military service members, which also included which includes a 3% auto enrollment and a 1% agency contribution. And then auto enrollment increased to 5% in 2020. Okay, so a lot of changes. You can kind of see the timeline of how this TSP plan came about. Okay, let's talk about the contributions and the matching component of TSP, because I think that's a really pretty attractive component as well. So once you become eligible to participate in the TSP, there's 3 types of contributions you're going to receive. First and foremost, you'll receive a 1%, I'll call it a non-elective agency contribution. That is, that the government is just going to automatically put 1% into this plan no matter if you contribute or not. Then you also have the ability to make your own elective deferrals or employee contributions. And so that money actually is deducted right from your payroll. It goes right into the program. You don't see it. And in many cases, you end up getting back an after-tax income that's very similar, if not even more in some cases, depending on how much you contribute, than it would be had you not contributed, just simply because there's less taxes that are being deducted from your pay, okay? And then you have the agency matching contributions, all right? And so the way that the agency matching contributions work is that the government will match you up to the first 3% for every dollar for dollar. So dollar for dollar for the first 3%. So if you put in 3%, they're going to put in 3%. Then the next 2% is matched at 50 cents on the dollar to cap out at 4%. Okay, so if 5% gets you a 4% match. Anything over and above 5%, you're going to get 4% because there is no matching contribution after you're contributing 5%. So still, you're getting a really nice match, the ability to defer taxes and to save for the future. It's a win-win-win all the way around. Okay, and so on this slide, we point out the contributions that go into your TSP plan based on the source, whether it's the automatic, non-elective, your elective deferral, or the matching contribution. And it also then juxtaposes the hire date. And really the takeaway here is, again, we've kind of said it ad nauseum today, but more of the responsibility is on your shoulders. The 3 to 5% contribution requirement, or the automatic employee contribution, was a significant increase for those employees hired after 2010 or July of 2010, because prior to that, there was no automatic contribution. Okay, so if you didn't contribute, you weren't getting any match. You would get the 1% non-elective contribution, but I think the government realized, hey, that's just not enough. So they mandatorily require a 3 to 5%. So any employee hired after 2020 has to put 5% in. And this was also an interesting observation, really, that employees hired before 1987 got nothing. No agency match, no government contribution, no non-elective, nothing. So it's a good step in the right direction. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that most people don't even notice it, and they really appreciate having it when the time comes to start drawing from that account. All right, now let's talk about the TSP investment options. Participants in the TSP plan are offered 5 investment options consisting of the G fund for government securities, the F fund for fixed income or bonds, the C fund for common stock, the S fund for small caps, and then the I fund for international investments. And you can invest in any combination of these 5 funds that you choose. For this presentation, we're not going to get too specific into, the underlying investments, what they're comprised of. That's really where you want to have a conversation with your financial advisor to build an allocation, or to take a look at your financial plan and determine how much of each one of these funds you should have. The takeaway is generally you should have them all, because it never makes sense to be 100% of any, put 100% of your money anywhere. But I just wanted to kind of highlight a couple of them. First, I think the G fund is particularly worth mentioning here because it's a fund that's unique to the TSP. The G fund, or the Government Securities Fund, is invested in short-term government U.S. treasuries. So short-term and government U.S. bonds or debt exclusively offered to the TSP participants. And the payment of the principal and interest is guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. So that in and of itself is a nice benefit in that it's, essentially a risk-free investment. But more importantly, the fund has very little risk associated with interest rates because it is a short-term portfolio. And so as you move out on the maturity of investments like bonds, the longer something takes to mature, the more variability in what it's worth investors can speculate about. So having a short-term government security fund in that portfolio that's exclusively available to TSP participants is unique, and it's an advantage of using this as a retirement vehicle. Another fund that I wanted to mention is the S fund, or the small cap stock index. And so small cap just means think small companies. Okay, we look at the size of a company based on their market capitalization, and that's how many shares outstanding are there times what they're worth. Generally, small caps range between, I would say, a $3 to a $10 billion market cap size. Okay, now this S fund, or this small cap index, is actually based on the Dow Jones total stock market, which is a sub-index of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. However, the main thing to take away here is we don't want you to be misled by the title, because be misled in the sense that you think this fund is all small caps, because the Dow Jones total stock market includes both small and large stocks. So it's just a little bit of a misnomer on the name, but still a great fund to invest. In addition to these funds, participants can also choose from 10 lifestyle mutual funds, or L funds, which consist of varying combinations of those 5 individual funds, the G, F, C, S, and I. And the combination is based on your risk level and your expected year of retirement. So for instance, if you plan on retiring in 20 years, you could choose a lifestyle fund that's a little bit more aggressive. However, if you're planning on retiring in that, what we refer to as the retirement red zone, that 3 to 5 years prior to retirement, you'd probably want to pick a little bit more conservative lifestyle fund. And then the last point I want to touch on with the TSP plan is one of the other advantages, which is the cost. The expenses are extremely low compared to, I'll say, the retail industry or outside of the TSP plan. Expenses on a TSP plan for one of those funds generally range anywhere from 0.043% to 0.059%. That means for every $100 you invest, it would cost you about 6 cents, compared to the average mutual fund fee outside of the TSP, which can range anywhere from 0.5 to 1%, which means you're looking at 50 cents to $1 versus 6 cents in the TSP. So very low cost, but somewhat limited in your choices, obviously, because you've only got 5, and then there's some lifestyle funds. You also don't have a whole lot of visibility on what's in there, or any choice in moving monies inside of the funds themselves. That's taken care of by the government. So what you get, the low cost option, what you sacrifice is flexibility and visibility on what you actually own. Okay, well, just rounding third base here, we're finishing up. I've got a couple more slides to show you here today, but I wanted to go over specifically what are some of the things that a financial planner can do for you. And as with anybody, any busy professional, business or government, we invest a lot of our time and our energy into our families, into our careers. And for military service members and government employees, particularly, I think this is, an issue, because oftentimes we neglect some of the more subtle nuance of the retirement program that is specific to you. For instance, active military service members who are in active war zones receive tax-free income. However, if they're contributing income that they are generating in an active wartime, in an active war zone, and if they're contributing to a traditional retirement account, well, that's putting tax-free money into an after-tax account. You may be better off having all of your contributions going into a tax-free investment like a Roth, something like that. So that's an extreme example, but nonetheless, it is important to make sure that you understand the ins and outs of the retirement plan that you qualify for, and sometimes going it alone can cause you can be a pretty significant disservice. So that's one takeaway, is just having somebody to hold your hand, if you will, and kind of walk you through some of these pretty big decisions is going to help significantly increase your probability of successfully enjoying a comfortable retirement, okay? But more specifically, I think there are a couple things that financial advisors can do for our military service members and our civilian government employees to help them enjoy comfortable retirements. The first and foremost is helping them establish the appropriate savings amount. And we talked about the fact that 5% is currently the default, the automatic contribution, but maybe 5% isn't enough for you. Maybe you have grandiose dreams of traveling and living extensively, maybe in another country for part of your retirement. I mean, why not? You've earned it, right? So that's going to take a little bit of planning to determine what the appropriate savings amount is, and doing it sooner than later is going to help you, because the sooner you start, the less that you have to save. So helping participants determine the appropriate amount of savings is going to be a significant advantage that you can avail yourself by working with a financial planner, I should say a knowledgeable financial planner. Also, what financial planners can do is help you with a very important step, which is just establishing the appropriate investment allocation. That is to say, help you determine the right mix of the different funds that you have available to you, whether it's the G or the F or the C. And the way that we do that is we start with a financial plan. And that financial plan describes what you want to do with your money and when. And once we have that detail, we can pretty much back into the options that you should invest in that our financial planning sensibility is that we bucket groups of 5 years worth of income in different time frames throughout your life. So buckets 1 through 5 should probably be invested in something very conservative, whereas buckets 10 plus or 20 plus can be a little bit more aggressive, because we recognize that you don't want to take a loss on monies that you plan on spending sooner than later, whereas monies that you don't need right away can be invested a little bit more aggressively, because we're not going to have to need them, okay? Also, working with a financial advisor can be crucial for a retiring military service member who may just find it difficult transitioning from active military life to civilian life. I mean, especially as it pertains to cash flow, insurance, and taxes and investments. Again, this is a lifetime of learning that I've spent the majority of my adult career really learning, and we have 500 or plus so clients that are pretty much have similar that are in similar situations to you, and we've gleaned a lot of insight over the years from those interactions with those clients. I sometimes joke around that I've lived my 65th year probably 500 times, because each one of those clients have their own challenges, their own concerns and questions that we've helped them address. And so we've learned a lot, and we can really help you accelerate your learning curve and get to where you want to get to a lot faster. Very simply, also just verifying beneficiaries. I was reading in an article recently that in some of the changes that the TSP program, or the government has made to the TSP program, basically moving it online, some of the beneficiary designations were lost. Now, I don't know if they've corrected that issue, whether or not they had that documentation on a physical format, but whatever the reason, regardless, it is important to make sure that you're verifying your beneficiaries, that you're getting them enrolled properly in the plan, and making sure that ultimately, if anything happens to you, the disposition of those assets according to your liking is established and will happen the way that you want it to happen. And then lastly, just coordinating all these different components of your financial plan is important. And we're going to segue into the section we talk about optimizing your retirement plan. Okay, so let's just jump right into that right now with an example of a person. We're going to look at Anne, who has just recently retired, and we're going to talk about how we were able to optimize Anne's FERS program and coordinate it with her Social Security benefits. Okay, everybody, so let's take a look at the example we have for Anne today. So Anne is expecting to retire from the post office, the U.S. Post Office, at the end of 2024. She's going to be 57 years old, and she's going to retire with 32 years of service. So based on our previous slides, Anne would be retiring with an immediate retirement option, in that she met her minimum retirement age of 57, and she is retiring with at least 30 years of service, so she's qualified for an immediate retirement. Okay. Anne also had been contributing 3% of her salary to a thrift savings plan, and then the agency was matching it 4%, which includes that 1% non-elective contribution and the 3% match. Anne's average consecutive highest 3-year salary was $32,600, and currently Anne has a balance of $265,000 in her TSP plan. Okay, so now if we look at some of her FERS benefits, the basic pension plan would estimate her benefit to be about $9,600 per year, which is $800 per month. And that special supplemental income, remember that Social Security special supplemental income that she could receive until age 62, we estimate that to be about $6,200. And then based on the balance that she has in her thrift savings plan currently, we estimate that she should be able to generate a $6,600 annual income from that savings plan. Now, when you look at all three of those sources of retirement income, you add them up, that's about $22,300, which as a percent of her final average salary is about 69%. Now, we use that percent of your final year's salary as just a gauge of your retirement readiness. The general rule of thumb is that if you can replace 65 to 70% of your pre-retirement income with post-retirement income sources, you're probably in good shape for retirement. However, it's important to know that if Anne had contributed 5% instead of 3% of her salary to the thrift savings plan over those 32 years, she would be able to generate a $9,400 a year income versus the $6,600 income from her thrift savings plan. That would increase Anne's total FERS benefit to equal about 77% of her final average 3 pay. So as you can see, as we said earlier, saving just a little bit of extra money, 1 or 2%, can make a significant impact in retirement. All right. Now we're going to transition to how we go about optimizing Anne's Social Security and FERS benefits together in one comprehensive plan. Okay, now let's drill down a little bit more specifically on Anne's Social Security decision. So up to this point, we've been talking about the basic benefit, we've talked about the TSP plan, and a little bit about the supplemental income benefit that you receive as part of your FERS benefit package. The Social Security supplemental income benefit, if you remember, runs out at age 62 because you're eligible for Social Security. But you don't have to automatically take Social Security at age 62 just because you were receiving the supplemental income. You have a decision to make. You can either take it early at 62, or you can delay taking Social Security benefits to age 67, or maybe even beyond. Anytime in between 62 and 70 is an option. So what should Anne do? Well, let's look at her specific situation a little bit more closely. So remember that her highest 3 average salary was about $32,000. So she estimates she's going to need $3,000 per month in retirement to make ends meet and pay the bills. And she has a TSP balance of $265,000. Okay, now I plugged some of these factors into the Social Security website at ssa.gov. You can actually run an estimate to see what your benefit would be from Social Security, or more accurately, you can actually download your own Social Security statement from ssa.gov by logging in. If you need any help logging in, we can help you do that and get a copy of your Social Security statement. But again, for illustrative purposes only, these numbers don't necessarily represent what you're going to get if these facts were similar to your circumstances. Again, this is just for illustration purposes only. But let's assume that based on the Social Security statement, at age 62, Ann could generate approximately $963 per month in Social Security benefits. She could wait till age 67, which is her full retirement age, and generate or collect a $1,421 benefit per month. Or she could wait until age 70 and collect a $1,797 benefit per month. Now, conventional wisdom, I should say, would indicate that, okay, I've just lost approximately $900 I've just lost my Social Security supplemental income. I think we estimated that was around $6,200. We don't have that anymore because we're age 62. So I don't have that income coming in. I have Social Security that's available. I should take it. Not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say. Maybe you don't want to take Social Security right away, because remember, when we take it at 62, we get a reduced benefit. But if we delay, we get an increased benefit. So let's take a look at what Ann ultimately decides to do. And Ann ultimately decides to take it at her full retirement age. Well, why would she do that? Well, for a couple of reasons. Well, first and foremost, Ann is going to take Social Security at full retirement age because it's going to avoid her locking in that reduced benefit that we talked about. And it's also going to allow her the ability to find another job, because if you make more and earn income than what the government allows you to each year, which in your full retirement year, it's around $50,000. If you make more than that, the government's actually going to penalize your Social Security temporarily. You end up getting the money back over time, but it is a temporary reduction. My experience has been, they're changing the amount, they're withholding some payments. If you can hold off on taking Social Security till age 67, just do that. But keep in mind that if you take Social Security before your full retirement age, the benefits could be reduced depending on how much you make over the threshold and what the threshold just happens to be. So Ann takes it because she's going to avoid locking in a lower lifetime benefit. She's not going to have to worry about any earnings threshold testing to see whether or not her benefits get reduced by Social Security. And then that's also the bigger reason is that by doing that, by delaying taking Social Security, it's going to extend the useful life of her TSP plan. That means the money is less likely to run out by actually waiting to take Social Security and using the TSP early. And I know that doesn't sound intuitive, but let's take a look at how that actually happens. Okay, so remember that Ann has a TSP balance of around $265,000. She needs $3,000 per month, and so she's got a pension, she's got Social Security, she has the ability to withdraw from her TSP. So some combination there in is going to be what she ultimately uses to create that $3,000 monthly income. So option one is, okay, first and foremost, she's got that $800 basic pension from FERS. She could take Social Security right now and get $963, which means to make up the difference, she would have to withdraw $1,237 per month from her TSP plan. So let's look at how long the TSP plan would last withdrawing $1,237 per month from it. So based on an assumption of a 3% rate of return on that TSP plan, you taking $1,237 out per month, that account would be expected to run out by age 88. Now, for some, 88 is, a nice age. A previous mentor of mine would say, I'd sign that scorecard. And I agree. Most people probably would say that 88 is a nice long time, a nice long lifetime. However, based on the advancements in medicine and the fact that just people are generally living longer, as I'm going through these planning conversations with clients, while we don't know how long we're going to live, we get to decide how long we're going to plan to live. And so as I'm doing planning, as I'm doing planning for myself and my family, I'm going to assume I'm going to live well into my 90s. I mean, I think there's a really good chance that the average person these days is going to get to 90, especially if you're a couple. And one of the members, one of the spouses of the family is probably going to get to age 90. So as I'm planning, I'm going to shoot for age 90. And so Anne does the same thing. She also does not feel comfortable with having the TSP run out at age 88. So what does she do? Well, she seeks the advice of an advisor, America's Retirement Headquarters, and we talk about the concept of optimizing your retirement account. What does that mean? Well, let's look at what would happen if we, instead of taking Social Security, we actually withdrew from our TSP plan for 5 years the amount of money that we needed to get us to $3,000 per month. So if I'm getting $800 per month in pension, I need to take $2,200 per month out of my TSP plan for the next 5 years. By doing that, that obviously drops the balance considerably. It costs her about $100,000, roughly $130,000. So it takes her TSP balance from 265 down to about 167. Okay, but then look at the amount of the withdrawal. Okay, by waiting to collect Social Security, we get an increased amount, $1,400 compared to $963, and that reduces the lifetime withdrawal on the TSP plan. And so by only having to withdraw $779 for the rest of our life versus $1,237, that actually extends the useful life of the TSP plan for another 5 years. Okay, and then to go one step further, she could actually wait until age 70. Okay, so she's got the $800 pension in this option. Social Security grows to $1,797, and that results in only a $400 a month withdrawal at age 70 that Anne would have to make. And so by doing that, yes, it does drop her balance down considerably, but it extends almost past age 100. And so as you can see, that in a nutshell is the concept, a very high level overview of Social Security optimization. Okay, by not just taking Social Security because we can, by taking it at age 62, we don't want to do that in this case. She elected to take it at 67. That helped her to avoid any penalties on the Social Security benefits she was receiving, as well as extend the useful life of her savings balance and lock in, a higher lifetime Social Security amount. That actually was the plan that Anne decided to implement. And those are some of the considerations that we can help you, and decisions we can help you make as it pertains to Social Security and coordinating Social Security with your FERS benefit. Okay? So I know I ran a little over. I apologize. I get a little excited about this stuff. But in effect, planning for retirement as a federal employee requires that you navigate a very complex landscape of benefits, including the Federal Employee Retirement System, Social Security, and the Thrift Savings Plan. And so to coordinate correctly all three of these essential retirement pillars to optimize the overall outcome requires that you work with a professional that knows the ins and outs of all three of those systems: Social Security, your pension, and your TSP plan. And this is going to help ensure that you retire the way you want, the way you want, with dignity, when you want, with comfort. So again, our offer to you today: if you don't have a financial plan, if you have questions about FERS, if you're not exactly sure some of the ins and outs and how they work, please give us a call here and we can set you up with a retirement analysis that's going to give you an in-depth, step-by-step approach to collecting, maximizing, optimizing every single dollar that you're entitled to. Because again, you owe it to yourself. To be fair, you work way too hard to not be able to retire and enjoy retirement the way you want. So to get a hold of us, you can schedule a consultation just by emailing us at chaz@theretirementhq.com. You can call or text at 419-740-5050. Visit us on the web at www.arhq.com, or you can scan this nifty little QR code here. It takes you right to my calendar, and you can schedule a time just to chat. Initial consultations are always complimentary. We don't charge for them. Generally, our discovery session takes about 45 minutes to an hour. It's where you tell me what you want retirement to look like, almost like painting a picture. And then we'll kind of paint some of the broad strokes and do some sketching. In a subsequent meeting, we'll kind of break out then any of the observations that we've made from the first meeting in more detail, come up with the recommendations, the product types, the accounts, what it costs us, your obligations, and what are our obligations in that relationship. So we'll spell it all out in the second meeting. And then from there, generally in the third meeting is where we implement the plan, fill out the paperwork, and take the next steps. So if you've made it this far, take some time, strike while the iron's hot. Don't miss an opportunity to reach out and work with a financial advisor with more than 25 years of experience, and to help make sure your retirement is enjoyable and you live the retirement of your dreams. So again, thank you guys very much for your time. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Stay cool out there and enjoy the rest of the summer, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.